On today's show, we talk about the latest Dallas Mavericks rumors around Kyrie Irving, around Nico Harrison, around Miles Turner liking tweets, and then here we go, yo. What's the scenario for the Dallas Mavericks? On today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
10 Mavericks, NBA champions. Bang! It's good, and the Mavericks have won the game.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Loyalty never fades away.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show. Making Locked On Mavs your first listen every day. Join the Raccoon Squad. Be an everydayer. Subscribe, follow for free. Just search Locked On Mavericks wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube to join the 25,000 strong. Woo! Where the best way you can help us grow this show is to listen every day and to comment anything below. Let us know in the comment section. Who do you most want the Dallas Mavericks to sign? Which scenario did you like best that we talk about a little later? And we'll do that. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. If you want to support the show, text us, get text alerts from us. I was texting a bunch of people today talking about Mavs rumors, and we'll respond to any kind of big rumors that happen to the Mavericks on there right away. Subscribe to our subtext. Click the link in the description below. We got 100 strong on the subtext. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate each and every one of you. You're a real part of the Raccoon Squad. All right, and joining me, as always, my co-host, writer, contributor at Mavs.com. The Scenario Son, the One More Thing King. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
I feel like we need the Wilt picture with 100 on the paper.
I have no physical paper near me.
Wow. Such a millennial.
No I also have paper. A printer to my right, so I can...
I haven't used a pencil in years.
I don't have any pens.
little calm before the storm a little bit. Feels like past 24 hours we've seen some small things. You know, we have some deadlines as Nick looks around his office for a writing utensil. Some deadlines hit on some decisions for there you go.
I found it. Expo marker and a sheet of printer paper.
Yeah, so last night Reggie Bullock's contract is fully guaranteed with the Mavs, as the date was the 28th. So, yeah.
Mark Stein just reported Reggie Bullock's contract with the Mavericks for next season will be fully guaranteed. So we know that now. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that rumor that is no longer a rumor anymore. We'll talk about all kinds of different rumors and things. And then when I mentioned scenarios, we're going to get into different scenarios that could actually happen for the Mavericks, different routes they could go down, what could happen for the Mavericks. And then we'll talk about that scenario and what it could be. Could they trade for Jonas Valanciunas and sign this guy and sign this guy? And we'll go through a scenario. Like, all right, this happens for the Mavericks. What would we think about it? So let's get into that. But first, let's start with the latest rumors. Ramona Shelburne on ESPN reported that Kyrie Irving is expecting to take meetings when free agency opens. And he wants to find a place where he can spend the rest of his career, a place that feels like home. Gotta love that. What are your thoughts on Kyrie Irving taking meetings?
Yeah, I'd just like to know who the meetings are with. No, I mean, I still expect him to be back. It feels like everybody's been saying, hey, there's no other teams out there. Been saying that in order for him to have leverage, he at least needs to have a team out there connected to him. So I still expect it, even though there's like 24 hours left. I still expect some team to come out and, to be connected to him going into free agency. Whether it's true or not, I expect a team to be connected to him, but I think he'll be in Dallas. So
this is the classic, like, fake it till you make it situation where, all right, we just got to just tell him there's meetings. Tell him I'm having meetings, because it can't just be, well, there's no market. Tell him
meeting with Miami's brass.
Tell him. This reminds me a little bit of the Jalen Brunson situation, where Jalen Brunson was like, oh my gosh, I got to make this look like it wasn't tampering, so we got to have meetings. And he's like, I'm having meetings with the Heat. And Pat Riley was like, no, you're not. And the Mavericks were like, Brunson was like, I'm having meetings with the Mavericks. And the Mavericks were like, no, you're not. And then he just went to the New York Knicks because, yeah. So, I agree with you there. He's got to have some kind of leverage in this. everybody has said they expect Kyrie Irving to return. It just depends on the number, the amount, and the amount of years and all that. Nico Harrison also threw out the first pitch at Mavericks night at the Rangers game, and it was asked about Kyrie Irving. He said, "I'm always confident, but never too confident until it's done." He also was asked about Reggie Bullock's deadline. He said, "We like Reggie. Now we know that the Mavericks have in fact guaranteed his contract." Were you surprised at all?
Not at all. It was the expectation the whole time. $10 million for Reggie Bullock is really good deal.
If the Mavericks had not done that, I would have thought that maybe there's another move coming, right? Because that's the only reason why you would do that. He's still a playable player. He's still a starting level player. He did not play well last year, right? Like we could put that out, but he played really well in the playoffs the year before, really well in most of the regular season the year before. And so comes back this year, maybe rejuvenated after a long offseason. And for $10 million with 1 year left, like you still take that guy. If you don't have Reggie Bullock on the roster, you're looking for a Reggie Bullock type to fill that role, right? Just the same way they're still looking for a Dorian Finney-Smith type player to fill that role. And so to me, unless something else was going to happen, they were going to guarantee his contract, and they did.
Yeah, 100%.
Miles Turner was in Dallas Mavericks Twitter news circles because he liked a tweet. He doesn't like many tweets, but he liked this tweet from JJ Redick's podcast about what the Dallas Mavericks are missing and around building around Luka Doncic, and specifically talked about missing a center. Isaac Harris, get your tinfoil hat out.
Uh-oh.
Are you reading anything into Miles Turner liking this tweet?
I am not.
You just...
Wah.
Can we just have fun with it for a minute?
He'd be great in Dallas, though. I'd love it. I feel like he's done this before. He's liked Mavs tweets, and we get excited, and then it's like the hamster wheel, and you get your hopes up, and yeah. If he can make his way to Dallas, let's do this. But him liking a tweet doesn't get my hopes up anymore.
I don't think it means anything unless it's some kind of deep thing. But even players are finding out that they get traded on Twitter. So it's not like he knows he's going to get traded and he's just sitting there waiting and then likes the tweet. But maybe he's trying to send a message like, hey, I can be that guy, and sending a message to the Mavericks in that way. I wouldn't be surprised by that if that's the thing. Or maybe he just saw it and was like, hey, I like this. But he doesn't like very many tweets, which is what really
save me from Rick.
Perked my ears up. Jake Fisher also reported that Gabe Vincent, who we've talked about a couple times this week, is also a secondary candidate to Dallas and Philadelphia if chicanery was the word he used, were to prevent the Mavericks or Sixers from retaining Kyrie Irving or James Harden. So if Kyrie Irving decides, I'm taking these meetings, somebody comes to the meetings, and then there's somebody that wants to sign me for more than what the Mavericks are going to offer, he goes there, the Mavs lose Kyrie Irving, and then Gabe Vincent will become a Mavericks target then.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fit in Dallas if that's the case. I mean, I'd hope that they could get somebody better than a Gabe Vincent, but with the money they'd have freed up in that scenario. But Gabe Vincent at a reasonable number would be a good fit in Dallas alongside Luka.
Yeah, that would be an interesting signing. If Kyrie leaves, you have to scramble something together, and so I think Gabe Vincent would be part of that. They would find a way to clear a good amount of money left, or find a good amount of money in salary cap, but not enough to replace what Kyrie could do. But Gabe Vincent would be that guy. It sounds like Van Vliet's going to go to the Rockets for 2 years, $80-something million, which is just insane. The Mavericks couldn't pay that. So then your next option becomes a Gabe Vincent, a Harrison Barnes, guys like that. Maybe a Jakob Poeltl. And so that's what it comes to. A couple other things. The Portland Trailblazers signed Matisse Thybulle to a qualifying offer, making him a restricted free agent. This was a sneaky guy that I was looking forward to the Mavericks just picking up. They had been connected with him in the past and getting him on some kind of minimum biannual exception or something like that. And now this makes it a lot harder to do.
Yeah, a lot of these deadlines were happening yesterday with Thybulle, with Taurean Prince in Minnesota, Eric Gordon, Reggie Bullock that we mentioned. So you kind of figure out what type of names are on the market. Charlotte made a handful of guys restricted free agents. So yeah, I mean, you can still bid on Thybulle, but they can just match anything. So it's kind of weird. So
it makes it a lot harder for them to sign him. I don't expect that to happen anymore. It didn't make it in any of my scenarios a little bit later. So Portland also decided to not make Cam Reddish a restricted free agent. So they just are letting him go because of their cap luxury tax crunch and all that. And so Michael Scotto reported on both of those. Cam Reddish now becomes an unrestricted free agent. Mavericks have been connected to Cam Reddish in the past. There was all those talks.
Go ahead and mark him down. Pencil his name in for camp in September in Dallas.
They were connected to that, like Reggie Bullock for Cam Reddish deal back last season that didn't make any sense, but they were connected to him. And so, yeah, I think that he could get a camp invite. He's still throw up the shrug. He's only 23.
Here we go.
He's a top 10 pick. He was the pick that made the Hawks win the Luka Trae Young trade. So, I mean, if the Mavericks can get their hands on that guy, you might as well.
They would win the trade then.
They would. Then the Mavs would win the trade. Yeah. Imagine all the edits that would be made like right then. Coming up, couple more rumors, and then we'll start to get into our scenarios on what the Dallas Mavericks could actually do and what they could. What their offseason could look like and what we would think about that. We'll talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks has you covered for all kinds of stuff during the NBA offseason. You know that you want to go and you've got to get your sports fix in. And sometimes I'm watching a baseball game. That's a lie. I don't watch baseball games. But if I did watch a baseball game, I'd need something else to keep me engaged in it, right? You're watching the Rangers, like, I want to support this team. I want to watch this Ranger. I want to watch this fun Reds team. You're like, I need something to get me engaged. Prize Picks can be that thing to keep you engaged. All you do is log on or download their app, pick 2 to 6 players, and the more or less on their projections of, for baseball, for example, you can hit their fantasy hit score. So, for example, Corey Seager against Detroit on Thursday, 8.1 hitter fantasy score. You can go more or less on that. Let me go more on Corey Seager. Marcus Semien, let me go less on his 8 hitter fantasy score, just like that. And then I can throw in another player from another team if I wanted to, but I'm just going to do those 2 right now. Put down $20. If both of those hit, I win 60. If I put down $100, you can win 300 on that. You can put down $5 if you wanted. You can win 15. I mean, heck, just put something down on it. You can also get a 100% deposit match up to $100. The promo code Locked On. Again, that's prizepicks.com. Download the app or go to prizepicks.com. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of this show, part of the Raccoon Squad, and every dayer. We appreciate each and every one of you. Tomorrow, more free agent stuff, more rumors, more talks, more trades, all kinds of stuff. Hopefully, we get some more actual rumors. We've got Twitter open. We're sitting here waiting and hoping that we get to do an emergency pod at some point during this time. That's our favorite thing. Couple more rumors. The Chicago Bulls signed. This isn't a rumor. This is a report. The Chicago Bulls signed Nikola Vucevic to a 3-year, $60 million contract. We had talked about him as maybe a last resort type of give him the full MLE. Maybe he wants to come play with Luka. Maybe he wants to
stopgap center. Yeah,
stopgap, like last resort maybe, and that he would be good for the Mavericks on that point. And now that isn't the case anymore. He got signed for a pretty good amount of money.
20 a year. I have no clue what Chicago's doing, but good for you, Vooch, getting another contract.
It's one of those weird deals where like the price for him, I think, is good. He's 17, 11, and 3 assists the last 2 years. Like his stats were exactly the same the last 2 years, which is kind of funny. Like he puts up good number. Like that $20 million for that's the going rate in the NBA right now. The problem is, what are you doing if Vooch is still your center and you have Levine and DeRozan? Like it's just so weird what the Bulls are doing. Like they just don't have a direction right now. They're just still kind of treading water, which, hey. Other reports, Taurean Prince, the Timberwolves are declining to guarantee his $7.4 million contract for next season. That was a little bit surprising. And it was the most surprising to Taurean Prince himself, who tweeted, "Sheesh, appreciate the heads up, Woj." And he tweeted that today. Any thoughts on Taurean Prince, who I think now should become a Dallas Mavericks target?
Yeah, I agree. I think, if he's looking around places for the minimum, stuff like that, then, or if Dallas, they break up their MLE into, 2 to 3 different players and you're giving Taurean Prince, a couple million or something. Sure. He's a big wing. I'd like him in Dallas. Yeah.
He becomes the biannual exception guy, I think, to me. You're making like a little bit more than the vet minimum. So like it maybe entices you to not go to an LA or a Clippers or a Warriors or something like that and come to the Mavericks. But yeah, he's 29 years. He just turned 29. He's a 6'7" wing that he shoots pretty well from 3. He shot 37% from 3 in his career. He's bounced around a lot of different places: Atlanta, Brooklyn, Cleveland, Minnesota. Now Ben Beacon was tweeting about him today, our Locked On Wolves host, and he said he's inconsistent defensively. Didn't rebound the ball well, which has led to some of their rebounding struggles the Wolves had this year. So he doesn't solve some of the problems the Mavericks have. Like, wouldn't be a really good perimeter defender, wouldn't be a good rebounder, but can shoot the three. Big wing. Hey, the Mavericks can do worse than that. I think he would be a biannual exception type guy for that 4-point-something million. And then this just came across the desk. The Clippers are not guaranteeing Eric Gordon's $21 million contract. He'll become a free agent, according to ESPN. The Clippers will save. The Clippers save with this deal $110 million in luxury tax penalties. Absolutely insane. What would you think about Eric Gordon as a mid-level exception guy for the Mavericks? Let's say they gave him the full $12 million to come in.
Yeah, I mean, not bad, especially if you trade Tim for a defender and stuff. You bring Eric Gordon, come in and play the Tim Hardaway role, then sure, sign me up. Also, I was going to say about Prince, he's also from Texas and he played at Baylor, so it might be a little homecoming if he wants to.
Yeah, good call on that. With Eric Gordon though, he now becomes a free agent. I think he becomes maybe one of the best free agents that's that's available for not the max. That's not a Fred VanVleet or a Kyrie or a James Harden. And
I do wonder if I would watch like the Pacers with him, because dude, played at Indiana, vet, shooter, they have cap space. I could see a cap space team looking for a vet and a shooter that would, go up to like the 14 or 15 mark, just over to MLE to outprice some of the other.
He turned 35 in December. He's played on a bunch of teams. He's played in a bunch of playoff games. He played in a ton for Houston. Only played in the 5 for the Clippers last year. But he would be a target. But I wouldn't be, if they gave him the full MLE for the Mavericks. I wouldn't be ecstatic, because he doesn't solve enough of their problems. Unless, like you said, what if they do the trade where they trade Tim Hardaway for Jonas Valanciunas and decide to go that route, the stopgap center we talked about yesterday, and then they sign Eric Gordon to fill the Tim Hardaway spot. Like, okay, that's fine, but I wouldn't be super excited about it.
It's just what he feels is like 4th on the list of like, they need bigger wings, they need a stopgap center, they need a third ball handler. Yeah, so, but yeah, you could do worse.
Also, the new CBA came out. There's lots of stuff all over the place, all over it. Did anything stand out?
We're gonna read it.
I've got it open on my computer right now. I've been searching around. But yeah, there's a lot of things in it. There's a couple of, one thing that stood out to me is you have the second apron, obviously, that we've been talking about. The teams
you're about to go into this, aren't you?
Well, there's just one thing I wanted to.
Oh, I was like,
never mind. It doesn't affect the Mavericks. You can listen to a cap expert about it. Anyway, all right. Just the restrictions for the second apron are really bad. And then there's also this new floor where you have to spend 90% of the cap. And so that's going to affect some teams that will make moves that you'll be like, wait, why are the Spurs making this move? Why are the Rockets making this move to sign this guy to so much money? Because they have to hit that 90% floor. So that's something to watch out for. Okay, we're going to talk about some scenarios. Let's just throw out some scenarios. Give me the moves you think the Mavericks would make, and then we'll discuss how we think the Mavericks did if that's the scenario that actually happens.
Yeah, I'll do a broad thing real quick as far as like how they're going to improve the roster. You got trades. You're looking at, like a Tim Hardaway, some of the other guys on the roster. Reggie's fully guaranteed now, all that. You could do, you should have the MLE at that point, which is just over 12. You could possibly have the biannual, and then, the minimum and all of that. So I think when you look at it, I think the most likely scenario is they trade for a big and they use the MLE on a wing, because you could, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong here, but looking at the free agent bigs that they could realistically have a shot at for the MLE is pretty difficult. It's like, there's some bigs that I'm like, dude, I'm not going up to the 12 for him. And then there's some of them like a Brook Lopez. I just don't think we have a shot at the MLE. So I think the most likely scenario is you're looking at, them trading for a big, using an MLE, ideally on a single, wing or something like that. But if you have to, breaking it up. So that's like my broad prediction or path that I think they go down.
Yeah, all the scenarios that I laid out are exactly that. They do some kind of trade for a center, and then they sign a wing. Because, like you said, the centers that are going to be available are Brook Lopez or Jakob Poeltl, and you're not getting them for the mid-level. And then they're Cody Zeller, Mason Plumlee, Thomas Bryant. Like, you don't want to pay the mid-level for those guys. Like, you don't want to give or even split any of that up really for those guys. Maybe Mason Plumlee, but everybody else no. And so then you're stuck with. And then there are wings that are available. There's Grant Williams, there's Bruce Brown, there's Dylan Brooks, there's even Jay Crowder, Dante DiVincenzo. Like, there are a bunch of wings out there that they could give money to that would be better options and better players than those centers. So I'm totally with you on that. So coming up, let's actually get into some of our scenarios, lay them all out, and share those. We'll talk about all that coming up. All right, Isaac Harris, let's get into the Dallas Mavericks options and their scenarios for their offseason and for free agency. I got one route. Here's the risk route. You ready for the risky route?
Oh, I'm ready.
Most of these are assuming that Kyrie signs for the 4-year, 160 type $1 million deal, which, it would allow them to have the most options, right? So if he signs for a max deal, it just isn't as fun of a scenario for me to lay out.
No.
And so most of them have that scenario. So Kyrie signs for the 4-year 160, which opens the mid-level and which opens the biannual exception, and the Mavericks can do some things. They sign Kyrie. They trade for DeAndre Ayton. They do the Tim Hardaway Holmes JaVale deal, like the Suns cave, and say, all right, we'd rather just split this guy up than bring him back because he's not going to be happy. They sign Dylan Brooks to the mid-level exception. They bring in Patrick Beverley on a minimum, and or on the biannual or whatever. They bring in Cam Reddish on the minimum. They literally take a risk at every single spot and go, all right, we're taking the risk with Ayton that he can be better in this scenario, and then also somewhat worth the money that we're going to pay him. They bring in Dylan Brooks and say, all right, we're going to take a risk that this guy can be a lot better than what he's actually going to get paid, and be better than he was in Memphis, and hopefully he had a come to Jesus moment and learned in Memphis. We'll bring in Pat Beverley, who's just a cannon, and gives the Mavs some defense and just some give a crap that the Mavericks desperately need, and then they'll take a risk on Cam Reddish.
I don't even know where my mind is. This is like a Disney movie where somebody puts an apple on their head and then there's somebody shooting a bow and arrow at the apple, and this is it's just like blindfolding the person with the bow and then making them spin around 10 times and then saying, shoot the apple and say it and if it hits, it hits. There's a narrow path there that it could all work. But yeah, that's an option.
That's a scenario where they take risks at every spot and they say, all right, if this pans out, all of a sudden we have a former number 1 pick at center that can do all the things that we need him to do. We have a bigger-ish defensive wing in Dylan Brooks that can do some things offensively, even if you don't want him to do those things.
I was going to say, I think I'm a little bit more worried about Bev and Brooks than I am trading for Ayton.
Yeah, Ayton is the safest move of all those moves that I just laid out. All right, give me one of your scenarios.
All right, here's one. You call up the Lakers. Let's say the Lakers pick up the Malik Beasley option, and you say Tim for Beasley and Vanderbilt. Then you trade Reggie Bullock straight up for Al Horford.
Wow.
And Bruce Brown in your MLE.
That's an excellent scenario. I don't see the Boston one happening.
Okay, well, Al Horford's 37.
Yeah.
And he makes $10 million next year. So, I swapped his name. We could do Rob Williams if you think that they would, trade Rob Williams instead of Al Horford. They just brought Porzingis in, going to give him the big extension. So one of those guys is coming off the bench, and they lost Smart. So I think Reggie would be pretty valuable to him. So whether it's Horford or Rob Williams, talking them into a Reggie for one of their stopgap centers. Splitting Tim's contract up into Malik Beasley and Jared Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, you get the bigger wing there, and then convincing Bruce Brown to be the MLE. So basically turning Tim and Reggie into Malik Beasley, Vanderbilt, Horford, and Bruce Brown.
Man, I'm still not with you on the Celtics route. I would obviously do it. If you can do that trade, I think you go ahead and do it. But
you think they just keep all three of them the whole time?
I do. Yeah, I do. I think they just wanted to. Okay. I think they're all kind of wild cards and risks. Like Robert Williams misses a bunch of games. Porzingis misses a bunch of games. Al Horford's old. So they're all kind of contingency plans on each other. So yeah. I think that's what they're going to do.
Another thing for reason why they could do it is if they want to like if they want to bring back Grant Williams, then Reggie's an expiring contract.
Yeah, right.
So
right.
It could justify them, signing him or matching an offer for him on a long-term contract.
Yeah. Robert Williams would save them more money if they do that. He's making 11.5 this upcoming year, and then about 12.5 the year after that, and 13 the year after that. And Al Horford's only making 10 this year and 9.5 the year after that. So you save a little bit more if they decide to do that route. And they just want to all right, we got to dump some future money. We also have this Jaylen Brown extension looming that they have to figure out. So yeah, maybe it is a money thing. Okay, I'm gonna skip my play it safe route because it's not as fun. It's Kyrie signed with a trade option, a team option in the last year. You're like, all right, feeling really safe. Jonas Valanciunas for Tim Hardaway, Grant Williams at the MLE, and then bring in Goran Dragic on a minimum. That's your play it safe.
Ooh.
It's your play it safe.
Yeah, that's true. You think New Orleans would be any bit interested in a Rashawn Holmes for Valanciunas?
Just straight up?
Just straight up.
No.
I say this for two reasons. One, the report about them shopping Valanciunas for a more athletic, mobile big. I think Holmes is a little bit more athletic and more mobile. Also, with them extending the Garrett Temple deadline for his contract into July 7th, it allows them. They're a handful of million underneath the luxury tax, and the report I seen out of that was they're extending that to see if they can create a little bit more breathing room to figure out what to do at Temple. By swapping Valanciunas and Rashawn Holmes, it would save them an extra $3 or $4 million. So could give them a little bit more flexibility to bring back a Garrett Temple if they care that much. But
interesting.
Anyway.
Interesting route. My realistic fantasy route, though, the one that I'm all right, if I want everything to go right, and this is a great offseason that I would give an A.
Yeah.
Re-sign Kyrie for that deal. You do the Mavericks, Pacers, Suns 3-team deal where Miles Turner comes to the Mavericks, Ayton goes to the Pacers, Tim Hardaway and something else goes to the Pacers with Tice and McConnell going to the Suns too. And so they get three role players, 3 players you can put in a rotation. And then they sign Bruce Brown to the mid-level exception. And then they get Derrick Rose on a minimum where he comes in and he becomes your ball handler off the bench. It's like a vet. Jaden Hardy would love it.
Yeah.
That to me is all right, you're feeling really good about that route.
There's a lot of vets like that, like the Dragic, Derrick Roses, that if they don't go to the LA's, Phoenix, whoever, that it would be cool for them to come to Dallas and play with Hardy off the bench. Okay, let me give you one. Tim for Markelle Fultz, which is one of my favorite trades.
This is your trade. Yeah, this is like pod 4 in a row. You said that.
Well, I was I got to have a path with that. So Tim for Fultz,
yeah.
Grant Williams at the MLE,
right?
And then here's a just total out of left field. Reggie for Daniel Gafford. And
interesting.
I say that in only the case of if Washington, it feels like there's dumping all long-term money at this point and just wanting to start over. If the new regime in Washington, if they're not a huge fan of Dan Gafford and they're like, hey, we'd rather just swap this out for an expiring contract, then he qualifies in that category for me as come in and be a starting center day one. Yeah. But if next year Derek Lively passes him up, it's fine.
Yeah, you give him a chance. I signed for 3 more years, right? So you give him a chance.
Yeah.
Say, okay, this is your time. And then Derek Lively's all right, now it's my time. Next year or the year after that, then you're okay to do that. The Wizards have no front court guys. It's Gafford.
It's weird, yeah.
It's Gallinari. It's Muscala, and that's it. And Denny Avdia playing the 4. It's a very weird roster by design, but. Yeah, I don't know if they trade their 1 center away. Still gotta put a team on the court somehow.
Yeah.
I also saw a Wizards person, not one of the Lockdown Wizards people, but a Wizards media person put their starting lineup down, and Koulibaly wasn't starting, and I was like, "What are we doing?"
Yeah, what? Are you really starting DeLon right over him?
Just trade it up for him, and you're not gonna
Harala Bob in their front office.
Come on.
Okay. Can I do this? Do you have another path?
Yeah, I got one more.
Okay. All right, say yours, and then I got a curveball
Okay,
thing.
the everything goes just off of plan route. Like every little thing just kind of falls through, and you're like, okay, we just can't do everything. Kyrie signs a little bit bigger than the 4/160, so it takes an option off the table. You have to do the trade for Kelly Olynyk that we talked about the other day. You sign Jay Crowder and Keita Bates-Diop. That's like, all right, we still got big wings, but they're not like the big wings we wanted. And then this is one part that I think that could still be part of a good plan is they sign Dennis Smith Jr. So they bring him in. Everything just goes a little bit off of plan. We're like, all right, we got a ball handler, we got 2 big wings, we got a center, but it's not any of the guys that we like really wanted.
Are you having a press conference for Jay Crowder and Dennis?
Jay Crowder, Keita Bates-Diop, and Kelly Olynyk, like all in the presser. Like, who's asking them questions? Like,
I don't even know if that's a presser. I think that's just we'll see at media day.
This presser could have been an email.
Yeah, this could have been a Zoom. That's the new age definition of it.
They'll do it. They'll do it on Zoom from Summer League. You know, like, do
yeah. Let me say this. Here are 6 centers that I think one of them will be the starting center for Dallas on day 1 of this coming year. DeAndre Ayton, Valanciunas, Jared Allen, Rob Williams, Mitchell Robinson, Clint Capella.
Oh man, I hope you're right about literally any of those. Like I think any of those I would be happy. The Jared Allen one would really shock me, but yeah.
What are the odds that one of those 6 centers is the starting center for Dallas?
I would love to say 100%, but I'm gonna go with like a 35%.
Okay. Also, because I was kind of writing down like
before
realistic contracts, and I was like, MLE targets: Bruce Brown, Grant Williams, Dylan Brooks, Josh Hart, and then I kind of did like Harrison Barnes, Karis LeVert, like off to the side.
100%. I think one of those will be a Maverick. Like that path feels more realistic than making a trade for one of those centers.
So if you break it down that way, it's like, man, would a perfect offseason be? The path: re-sign Kyrie, trade for one of those 6 centers, sign one of those MLE targets. Would that be like a win off season for you?
Yeah. Any of those would be a win as long as they address those needs and get a stopgap center that we feel good about, some wings that we're like at least one wing that we're excited about, and then some kind of ball handler.
And then you're spending
honestly any kind of ball handler that's at least above the Facu Campazzo route, and like
yes,
I feel better about.
Yeah, and then you're spending what money you have left over, if it's the biennial or minimums, on the Derrick Roses, Dragic, Taurean Prince.
Dennis.
He'll probably get a little bit more.
Rose.
The Dennis, of the world.
And you're doing that at that point. Tomorrow, we'll be back with more rumors, more stuff. We're 5 days a week. We're 7 days a week right now, all throughout. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.